All right, moving on to House 2, The Second Story. Oh man, do I love this movie. This was one of those movies that I grew up on. I think everybody has, maybe 10 or 20 or so films that they just watched consistently growing up. And this so happens to be one of like the maybe 30. I had about 30 films or so that my brothers and I had on beta, and we would constantly play them over and over and over. I actually have them on my collection over here, all together in one set. Those are my childhood movies. House 2 happened to be one of those movies. I grew up watching it. Now, I will say that my opinion on this movie definitely is affected by my nostalgia for it. While watching it, I tried to take myself out of it as somebody who loves the film and grew up with it, and watch it as someone who was seeing it for the first time. Now, that wasn't super hard because I have this amazing Blu-ray from Arrow, and the transfer is so fucking gorgeous. And this is the first time I'm watching this transfer of it. That I don't know if you guys have watched Blu-rays on films that you've seen a million times, like Halloween or something. But if you have a great TV and you have a great transfer, or The Shining is another example, it's like watching the film for the first time. It's unbelievable how different it is, night and day. And this was no exception. This is a beautiful transfer. It looks like it was made yesterday. So while I was watching it, I did kind of feel like, would I like this so much if I didn't grow up with it? And probably not. I mean, I have labeled this many times as my favorite horror comedy of all time. And while I'll stick by that, I do have to admit that it is a bit of nostalgia. Do I think it's a bad movie? No, I do not. Do I think it deserves the 0% on Rotten Tomatoes that it has? Fuck no. This movie is fun. This movie is, a family-friendly horror comedy, action adventure. It's just kind of got a mixed bag of all the kind of things that I would enjoy. It's got hilarious characters. It's got, it's got everything, to be honest. So now that you know my feelings on this, I would also like to give a shout out to anyone who is a 90s horror child like myself. I was born in 1982. I grew up in the horror scene of the late 80s, early 90s. That was when I really got into the genre. And if anyone who knows what this shirt is without Googling it, then you were probably a fucking 90s kid like myself. And if you don't know what it's from Are You Afraid of the Dark? Which is the coolest fucking show when you were, 10 years old. So getting into the film. Now, this is yet again a Sean S. Cunningham production. So we got a lot of Friday the 13th alumni again. The same composer returns from the first one who did the music for Friday the 13th. Kane Hodder makes an appearance in this film. He was the stunt coordinator on the last one. I think he also is here, but he's in the film as the gorilla suit guy who tries to tangle with the prehistoric barbarian and gets thrown over the ledge. And then Lar Park Lincoln, who plays the main character's girlfriend in this movie. She is obviously Tina from Friday the 13th Part 7, The New Blood. So yeah, a lot of alum here. And I actually just found out, looking through the trivia, that Ralph Macchio, the Karate Kid himself, wrote a comic book that was adapted and released for this film. There is a fucking comic from like 1989 or something that Ralph Macchio penned of this film. That's too cool. I swear I saw it once on like eBay, and I did not know Ralph Macchio had anything to do with it. It was probably way too expensive otherwise. I would own it. So let's get into the good. And usually I do take notes on all my films, and I keep them here in my lap in case you're wondering why I'm always looking down. I swear I'm not looking at my penis. I didn't even put a slot for negatives because I knew I didn't have any. So I'm not going to say anything negative. There really is nothing negative about this movie for me personally. But as I said, that could be nostalgia. Somebody could watch this movie and hate the fuck out of it and be like, I got 600 of them. Well, I don't. Okay? So, but I'm not going to say that I'm not going to ask some questions here, because I will. There's some breakdown in logic when it comes to the plot, obviously. It's the kind of film that it is, that's always responsible for that kind of stuff. Now, I think first off, I have to say that just the cast alone, but I love everybody, but Charlie is just the fucking greatest character. Like, I will always put him in my top 5, favorite or funniest characters, especially funniest character. Everything that Charlie says in this movie is hilarious to me. One of my favorite lines from him is when Bill Maher comes in. Bill Maher is in this movie. It's so cool to see him in such silly films. He's been in a couple ridiculous films, but I love when he comes in this and he's like, who's this, Bozo the Clown? He's like, no, Bozo the Death Machine. I use that line all the fucking time. And no one ever knows what the hell I'm talking about, obviously. And then I just, not only the characters, but the creatures they encounter within this film. And the creatures they encounter just seem to be having a cute off the entire movie. Like, the baby pterodactyl and the caterpillar dog, both of those things are the cutest fucking things I've ever seen. Jesus, besides my children. But it's like every fucking scene they're on screen, I'm just like, the baby pterodactyl, especially like when they're having the dinner, and I love the dinner scene in this movie, like when he gets his whole family together, when Jesse gets his whole family. It's just when the pterodactyl like cuddles up to him and he squeaks. It's the fucking cutest goddamn thing. This is very lightly a horror movie. I'm not gonna lie. This, as I said, and that's what I really like about this movie, is that it is so playful, and it is basically like an action adventure. It has everything, man. Like, especially like, and talking about characters. Bill the Electrician. I mean, I think Bill the Electrician just kind of embodies like everything this film is. Like, it's silly and fun and playful, and it's just a blast to watch. Bill the Electrician. I mean, I can't imagine. I know that Ethan Wiley, who wrote and directed this, who helped write the first one and interjected all the comedy into the first one. Clearly now he's taken over, so it's all comedy for the most part. It's just like, I saw that he only had 2 weeks to write this script. And it's like, Bill is a product of that, but thank God for that. Sometimes when you're under the gun, I've written stuff for like ultra low budget horror. And it like, when you're on crunch time, and when there's a budget, and when there's things that are basically, tying your hands, you can turn those into something great. And I feel like that's what happened here. He had 2 weeks to write this, and he just said, fuck it. Like, I'm going to have fun with it. Like, why not have Bill the Electrician also be Bill the Adventurer? And for him to hand out a business card. I mean, when he hands him that business card and it's fucking Bill the Electrician and the Adventurer thing. It's such a great scene. It really just gives the tone of this film, a lot of go. Like, it's so fucking fun to watch. I love Gramps. I mean, Royal Dano, I know he had a triple or quadruple bypass surgery for this movie. But man, I mean, he has to look old as fuck, and he's wearing makeup the whole time, so it's fine if he's, labored and whatnot. He can't fucking move all that well. He's not supposed to be able to. He's a mummy. And I love him. Slim Reezer is such a cool main villain at the end. I just love the look of him. Something I said about the first movie that I'm going to say the same thing here is that I just love the house in this movie. It's just such a great look to this house. So, as is in the first movie, great house. This one's a great house. This house in this film was also used in 13 Ghosts, the more recent one. And, speaking on the fact that it is, not connected to the first one at all. I don't mind that at all because it stays true to the original idea. A house that has multiple different dimensions within different doorways and rooms and aspects of the house where crazy shit comes out of it and you have to go back in to get it. I mean, it's a very similar kind of thing. The first one's obviously a different tone. It's a little bit more serious than this one. But I think that even though it doesn't have anything to do with it, I do think that the house title applies here. A lot of the times you'll watch horror movies, or any kinds of movies, but especially horror, and especially in the 80s, where they did a sequel, and you're like, what does this have to do with the first one? And I do think that there's enough feel of this one to consider it a house film. So I like that they changed it up. And we do get the house back in, the characters at least, in part 4. I'm not sure that the third one, I haven't seen it in a long time, but I don't remember it, earning the house title. Now, a couple things I want to point out in this movie. I like how when Charlie and Gramps are leaving in his Alfa Romeo. How you ever say that car? Not a car guy. His Spider. They leave, and it's this one shot of them leaving, and the car crashes down, and then when they're coming back, it's the exact same shot, just played from a different angle. I just find that funny. Like, okay, that's the same fucking thing. I love that Charlie just so happens to have an Uzi in his trunk. Like, who carries a fucking Uzi in their trunk? Do you know how unbelievably illegal that is? And the fact that he gives his best friend a cigarette lighter, knowing it's a cigarette lighter, and almost dickishly telling him his friend realizes that it probably is, asks him, and he's like, nah. And it's like, this dude's life is on the line, and you're gonna lie to him right now? That's pretty fucked up, Charlie. I really like the stop motion in this movie. I just love to see that kind of stuff. It always kicks CGI's ass in films like this. I've said in the past, I love CGI when you put it in a fucking big budget, $200 million movie. That's fantastic, and it looks wonderful. But in lower budget horror, or any horror basically, keep it the fuck out. This is way better. I just think that Bill Maher's character in this did Jesse this enormous favor by taking his girlfriend away. His girlfriend was a fucking bitch. So, good riddance to bad rubbish. Some of my favorite lines from this movie is when his girlfriend comes in on him and he's in the kitchen and he's sitting there and he's just like, he opens it up and there's Rochelle in the closet. And she's like, who did you think it was going to be in there? And he's just, he says, I thought maybe it'd be a mummy or even a baby pterodactyl. And it's like, I don't know why that line cracks me the fuck up. It's like, only in this film would that line apply. I just find it to be hilarious. And then another one is when Bill, fucking brings them over to show him the hole that he's ripped in the wall. And just so nonchalantly says, looks like you got an alternate dimension in there. Yet again, it's just Bill being Bill in this movie. That whole scene with Bill is why I love this film. It just doesn't take itself seriously. It has whatever Ethan came up with, he just went with it and he had a blast, and I have a blast watching it. I think people who don't like this movie are taking it too fucking seriously. Period. I mean, could people dislike that without taking it seriously? Absolutely. But I just feel like the majority of people went into it wanting something more seriously. Now, question time. I have a few questions. Number one, what the hell happened between Jesse and Rochelle that he seems to want to have nothing to do with her? She, for me, is much hotter than his girlfriend. She seems to be all about him, and he wants nothing to do with her. The only thing that I can guess is that she's an alcoholic because she is fucking wasted when he finds her. And she is like totally sober. He leaves for like 20 minutes, comes back, and she is hammered. So maybe she has a drinking problem. Another question is, pertaining to pretty much the same thing, is Jesse is so worried that his girlfriend's going to see him with, Rochelle. He like turns her around, but then sits in a daze and lets her massage his shoulders for like a few minutes straight. I just found that to be funny. Like, you're worried your girlfriend's going to think you're doing something with this girl by talking to her, but your plan is to turn around and just accept a back massage from her in the middle of a party? Bro. Now, something with Slim Reeser. I got a couple questions about Slim. Number one, Gramps says that he shot him and left him for dead in Mojave Desert. But when we see Slim Reeser, he has a healed bullet wound in the fucking center of his forehead. So Gramps is lying. He didn't leave him for dead. He was fucking dead. He shot him straight through the head. Number two, how the fuck did Slim Reeser survive? Why is he there? The only thing that's supposed to be able to keep you alive is the skull. And the whole reason that Gramps is still alive is he's buried in the ground with the fucking skull. And when anyone takes the skull, it starts to kill him. So how is Slim alive? That doesn't make any fucking sense. It also doesn't make any sense that when Jesse gets the skull back for the last time, that Gramps still ends up dying. He lays in a fucking casket for 70 years for someone to get him out without oxygen, without food, without anything. So he is immortal in there, basically, just rotting away, clearly. But then Jesse gets the skull back, and it's only been like a day, and he dies? Why? Because he got shot? He lived without oxygen for 70 years. He lived without food. I mean, one shot ain't gonna kill a mummy. So that's fucking stupid. And I love that no one seems to protest. Like Charlie, Jesse, or the Aztec virgin girl, who's beautiful, by the way, that they now live in the Old West. That they basically just completely abandoned their lives and the time period in which they live in. I mean, and to add to that, like, these don't seem like legitimate time periods. Like, they seem to have a little bit of a supernatural spin on them. But I don't know if that's just the people that they're coming across and that they actually are just being teleported back in time. I don't know. But I just find it funny that it's like, I mean, of course, what are they going to do? Sit there on camera and be like, oh my God, all mopey when the movie is more, having an up moment wouldn't make sense. But I find it too funny. Do you have any, like, modern medicine is gone? You would have no idea how to survive in that environment. Like, if me or most of the people here now were transported back to the 1800s, we'd be dead in a day. We have no idea. We have no survival skills anymore. So anyway, that's nitpicky shit, but I just thought I'd mention it. This was a total blast to rewatch. So I'm really looking forward to 3. I remember it being a total ripoff of Shocker, but whatevs. I'm down for another one. So anyway, I'll get to that in a couple days. I'm actually going to watch Cult of Chucky tomorrow, finally. I'm really looking forward to that. I've heard a lot of negative, but I'm not going to let that, change my opinion. I will give my 100% honest opinion, always. So anyway, signing off.